Hey, what's going on? You're here with Tech Milli, and what we're going to be going over today is uh, we're going to review bulletproofing the F350 as well as really focus on the fuel system and oil system basics. That's what we're going to be focused on today. So it's mostly about the oil and fuel system that we're going to be going over. And then before we do that, we're going to talk about bulletproofing the 6.0 because whenever you're dealing with the F350, you always got to bulletproof it. It's one powerful creature, but you have to make it a point to get those 5 factors in it correctly. So that's the reason why I like to go over things, and then we're gonna deep dive into the oil and fuel. And after that, once we're done with that, we're then going to watch a few videos so we can get a little laughs and chuckles and try to figure out what everyone's going through. And if you maybe, you know what they say, wise man learn from other people's mistakes. So that's what we're really trying to do. So let's go ahead and get into it. All right. So again, what do they mean bulletproofing? Of course, we're going to do a quick review. Fuel system and oil system. That's the basics. All right, what does bulletproofing mean? Industry term for addressing known 6.0 liter power stroke failure points. Focuses on reliability, longevity, and heat management. Remember, it's a high, low pressure system. It's easy to destroy. If you are driving around and it's even a little bit overheating, it could be a literal problem. Not literal armor, preventative mechanical upgrades. That's really the goal. The goal, eliminate common roadside and catastrophic failures. So why the 6.0 needs bulletproofing? Factory oil cooler clogs with silica cast. The EGR cooler overheats and ruptures. The head bolts scratch under boost, and fuel pressure drops, damage injectors. So when we talk about the fuel system upgrades, the Blue Spring kit raises fuel pressure to safe levels. New fuel bowl seals and copper washers. That's something that you need to make sure that they're in. Okay, we're going to go more into that a little bit. Upgraded fuel filters and maintenance intervals, and protects injectors and prevent hard starts. So one thing that I'm going against right now is my F350 has hard starts. It's like it seems like it's cranking, and then have to crank it a little bit longer and longer, and that's a hard start. We don't like that. I mean, it's not going to be like the NPR, which is as soon as you crank it, as long as it's up and running, it sparks off. It's not like that. It takes a little bit more. That's the reason there's 2 batteries in there. But yeah, so the oil system improvements, the OEM oil cooler replacement or external oil cooler. We went over this last week, where you can have the air to oil, or you can have it connect directly on the engine itself. It's like aluminum metal contraption that's connected on. It's basically like having his own radiator attached to the engine. Then it's a coolant filtration system to prevent clogging. That's another system that is connected, not directly in front, but is right connected. If you do have that upgrade, it will be something that you'll connect right next to the radiator in front. Then fresh oil filter housing seals. of course, we all know whenever we're changing something, you got to change the O-rings, you got to change the seals, you got to change the gaskets and things of that nature. And the newer, the better, because if it's cracked or frayed or broke or anything of that nature, their failures will come. Maintains injector firing pressure. So the EGR solutions, EGR delete, off-road use only. So that's basically saying, like, if you are going to EGR delete, it's off-road. That's all you can do is off-road use only. You can't do it on the road. Upgraded welded EGR cooler, street legal options. There are those. Reduces exhaust gas temperatures as well as prevents coolant loss and overheating. So another factor will be the head studs and gaskets. The ARP head studs replace factory torque to yield bolts, prevents head lift under load. Remember, it's like the engine does this, and because they didn't make it with enough bolts, and they didn't make it with the correct bolts, it stretches, and it's no good. Usually paired with new OEM or MLS head gaskets, as well as major reliability upgrade for towing and hauling. All right, so if you're going to haul something or tow something, this is an upgrade that you're definitely going to have to do. If not, you will be on the side of the road. Cooling system upgrades, updated thermostat, heavy duty radiator, Silicat free coolant, ECT, EOT temperature monitoring. I think they're talking about the FICM right here. All right, results after bulletproofing, improved reliability and uptime, reduced maintenance emergencies, better towing confidence, expanded engine lifespan. So right now, if I was to get on the road with my F350 trying to tow and haul, for the most part, I'll probably only be able to do it for like a month and a half before some real serious issues happen. So that's one reason why I plan on getting on the road, but I'm planning on like doing something completely different as far as instead of me trying to get in the F350 and get a trailer behind it. Because if I was to do that, I'll probably be on the road sooner or later. All right. So yes, is it worth bulletproofing? Yes. If the truck is otherwise solid, cheaper than repeated breakdowns, ideal for work trucks and towing, turns a 6.0 liter into a dependable platform. All right. So if you're planning on just driving around and looking pretty, you don't really need this upgrade. You don't need to bulletproof it. But if you're planning on putting that thing to work, you're definitely going to need it. But I tell you this, even if you're going to drive around looking pretty, if you can, then do it. It's costly, but you have a beast that's going to last longer. All right, so the reason why we're here to really talk about the fuel and oil system. This is an overview of the 6.0 Power Stroke. So we're going to be talking about the fuel lines, the fuel bowl, the fuel or the oil filter system. We're going to understand fuel flow. That's one of the main things. We're going to identify all lines, washers, seals. We're going to then prevent leaks and roadside failures, as well as train operators to spot problems early. The earlier you spot something, the better, because if you don't spot it and you just keep driving like it's normal, then that's when things happen bad. It's little leak turns into something very big. So if you want to stay off the road, listen to your baby. So let's look at the fuel system diagrams. So this right here, this is the fuel injector, where you see is high pressure oil in. It goes down into the fuel injector, where it's high pressure oil. Then the fuel connects where the fuel line, where it goes fuel in, and it's spool valve. In fact, the spool valve goes before, and then intensifier piston is in there, and then the fuel actually goes in and it sprays. So at the very top, the high pressure oil is in, but it doesn't go into it. All it does is touches the top of the fuel in the fuel injector. All right, so let's look at the bigger picture. This is a little diagram of the fuel system. That's one thing we're really going to focus on for right now is the fuel system. So the fuel system feeds injectors, which we looked at already, and the oil system actuates injectors, the HEUI, the HUI, and the fuel and oil failures are linked. So if the fuel is having an issue, the oil probably is going to have an issue too, and they are linked. Small seal issues cause major drivability problems. Okay, so if it's a small seal issue, it's going to drive and have major driving issues. Fuel leaks and oil pressure issues must be addressed immediately. So if you do see that it's leaking oil, don't keep driving it. Or if it's leaking fuel, do not keep driving it. Park it, figure it out, because if you don't, you will be on the side of the road. So this is the major, this is just a diagram of what we have. So just going off of looking at it, looking at the first thing, that will be the tank itself. 323 is the tank holders, as well as 4. That's probably a mount. When we look at 5, those are little boats. Number 6, not sure what 6 is. Let's go ahead and take a reference on 6. 6 will be the vent hose vapor line. So 6 is the vent hose vapor line. We talk about 7 and 8 is a vent hose connector, the vent seal grommet. That's what 6, 7, and 8 is. We talk about 9, that's just the fuel cap. Well, yeah, the vent tube extension, I guess that's what they call that. Vent tool extension. Number 10, that'll probably be like the fuel level sending unit. Number 10, the fuel level sending. Number 11 is the O-ring, or it'll be a fuel pickup tube. Supply inside tank, or number 12 should be the O-ring. Oh, okay. Number 12 is the O-ring. Number 13, sending unit lock ring. Okay, sending unit lock ring. Number 14, tank skid plate lower shield. Number 14. Okay, yeah, you see number 14 at the very bottom. I was like, man, where is that thing? All right, so number 15 will be the filler housing guard. So the 15 is a fueling housing guard. 16, tank support brackets. So there's really 16, 17, 18. Those are dang near the same. Whereas there's scraps in the bracket itself. There's something to secure the tank itself. When we talk about number 19, we are now getting into, I believe is that the, yeah, I think they're looking at the housing for maybe that's the I'm trying to figure it out before I go over it. 19 is probably the primary fuel housing for the most part. So 19, it says quick connect fuel fitting. Number 20, fuel line retainer clip. All right. Number 21, electrical connector, fuel sender. Number 21 was the fuel sender. Number 22, the O-ring seal fuel line. Number 22, the O-ring seal fuel line. Number 23, spacer seal ring. Number 24, clip lock. And number 25, wiring harness retainer. Number 25, all right, will be the wiring harness retainer. Number 26, the fuel supply line. Number 26, the fuel supply line. And then number 27, fuel return line. All right, so I have this PowerPoint in the description. So if this is something that you kind of like to get acclimated to, go ahead and check it out, read it, look at it, because my whole thing is you know, being able to know what you're looking at means a lot. And I'm not gonna lie, I've learned a lot over the past couple of years dealing with this. And if I can help you with the little scratch and everything like that, I mean, great for you. Just get through it. All right, so let's talk about the fuel flow path. So from the tank to the engine, we kind of already talked about the last part where we were talking about the, so yeah, we're talking about where it goes to. So this is a diagram where we are going to start at the fuel tank itself. All right. And then the tank goes up, goes into the line, and at this point this will be the primary filter, water separator, 10 micron with heater and with probe. That's what this represents here, this whole diagram, this whole thing right here. All right, if you notice, it's probably got yeah, I'm not gonna get into the electrical stuff. But then we have the fuel drain. The fuel drain is something where if you want to just disconnect the fuel drain instead of you draining it, you know, trying to cipher it out, technically speaking, you can find that little I'm assuming that it's that something that you unplug for the most part. I'm not exactly sure how it looks, but I do have an understanding that with that fuel drain, it allows you to drain the fuel out of the system without having to decipher it. Then after that, it goes through into the electrical transfer and pump priming pump. Once it goes through there, is then going to go to the secondary filter, which is going up top. When you look at this, think about this as the fuel line. All right, this is the fuel line. And after that, it has a air bleed. All right, and then it goes into the fuel regulation valve, 60 plus or minus 5 psi cracking pressure. Then it goes into the right and left heads, where at this point these are the cylinder heads. And if you notice where the wire, the line arrows are going, that's where it's going into both of those. And then it does tend to go back. If you notice right here, we have some of it that goes back into the primary. All right, it goes back to the primary. So yeah. So when we talk about the primary fuel filter, this is what it looks like. The primary fuel filter can be found on the rail. It's going to be found on the driver's side rail, underneath, probably, I'm assuming, you know, underneath the passenger in the back and seat. That's probably like where it's located at. This right here is what's on top of the fuel tank. All right, this is a gasket, of course, and these are the intake and outtakes. Again, this is going to be a tube that pushes out. There's going to be a tube that pushes it back in. That's what this is. Then this right here is the fuel tank. I mean, this is the fuel housing, the primary fuel housing right here. If you notice, it has a little ratchet there. So this is a little ratchet, someone taking off. I believe it's like a 19. That's what it is, 19 millimeter to take it off. Now, the thing about taking this off, replacing it, I mean, I really feel like when it comes down to it, if it ain't broke, why touch it? But you are going to have to at least take off and change the filter. All right. If you have to change the pump, there's a few things that you're going to have to do, as far as probably bleeding the fuel out before you do it. If not, it's going to be very, very messy. So that's one thing you're probably going to have to do if you're going to take this whole thing off. But even if you don't if you're just changing the fuel filter, you might not even have to take it all the way off. You don't have to take the fuel all the way out if all you're doing, because diesel is something that's not like regular gas. Gas, you can't do too much around gas, but if you have diesel, you can smoke a cigarette after you're done dealing with diesel. But if you smoke a cigarette after you're dealing with gas, that might be your last cigarette. Also, if you notice, it has the electrical pump on that's attached to it. So this is the cap of the fuel filter housing. All right, and this side right here, and then right here, this is the electrical pump. All right, and the electrical pump. So the pump pushes in, the filter decontaminates, and after that we have then a little line right here. Then it goes through those other little filter. After it goes through the filter, it goes through the line that goes to the top of the fuel bowl. So this is a fuel bowl. That's what they call it. The reason why they call it a fuel bowl is because when you take that fuel filter cap off, it looks like a bowl of soup. So it's like a soup bowl. So when you look at it, the things that attach to the fuel bowl will be one, the the filters in the fuel. If you notice on this picture right here, we have two different housing. It houses two different things. It houses the oil, which will be the bigger one. And then if you notice from right here, this is the oil pan. It's showing you the oil pan right here. And then it goes up top, and then you have the oil filter, and then that small one is the fuel bowl, which is very small and has about 4 different connections that go into it. And we're gonna talk about where those connections go in a minute, but for right now, let's go ahead and just talk about what the fuel bowl contains. It contains, again, the filter. It contains the regulates fuel pressure. It separates water. The houses test ports and sensors, and is located at the top of the engine valley. So one thing about if you're gonna change out the upper fuel filter, it has with it the oil filter too. So you have to change both of them out. There is no change in the oil filter only. You have to change the oil filter and fuel filter. Now, if you change the primary fuel filter, I mean the primary fuel housing, the primary fuel housing for the most part, that is something that's underneath. This is on top of it's basically on top of the engine itself, and you have to change both of them out because the housing connects both of them. So yeah. So the lines we were referring to, so there are 5 different lines. I should say it's 4 lines, and also has a drain, which is used for service. So you have a supply in, that's the fuel supply line that goes from the tank to the bowl. Then you have a feed out, and it should be the feed out. The fuel feed lines, this is the bowl to the heads. It's 2 of them. So one goes to the left and one goes to the right. And then you have the return out, which will be a fuel return line. This goes from the bowl back into the tank, whatever's not used. So it just filtrates back out. And then you have a test port, that fuel pressure test. This is for us to diagnose. The purpose of the test port is to diagnose what's going on with it, and as well as a drain. This right here is a water fuel drain. This is for service. So one thing one of the bolts that's connected is the banjo bolt. It has like basically essentially a hole that goes in this way and out this way. It has hollow bolt with cross drilled holes. That with it you have 2 copper crush washers, sealing washers, and is used on fuel, oil, and coolant lines. So if you have 2 of the washers, make sure you use them. All right, so the fuel supply line, these are a bunch of the fuel lines that come with it. All right, you see these are the 4 that we referring to, and then a few other little components as well. Then the banjo bolts, and then that's a pressure gauge. All right, I think this is probably the pump, and then we have little wires that go with it too. So of course, the connection type banjo bolts, most common, requires 2 copper crush washers, 1 washer above the banjo fitting, one washer below the banjo fitting. And missing washer, guaranteed fuel leak. If your fuel bowl is leaking, that's one thing you can check. If it is where the banjo bolt is supposed to be, maybe one of the washers are missing. If one of the washers are missing or is old, it's going to have issues. So let's talk about the fuel feed lines that go from the fuel bowl to the cylinder heads. Of course, we're going to go, there's a left side and right side. So what happens is there's two different lines. Once it goes into the system, so the fuel supply from pump goes in, and it goes from the tank through the fuel pump. Then it goes through the primary fuel filter, fuel housing. Then it goes to the secondary. So this right here then goes here. It goes up. And at this point, it goes into the fuel bowl. From the fuel bowl, it's going to go to two different locations. It's going to go to one location that's going to go to the left side, and then it's going to go, one side is going to go to the right side. And this is the fuel check valve, where it's going to be right in front of the engine, right in front of the engine compartment here, where if you look at it, you twist it off. It's probably, I think it's like a 17. It's probably like a 15, I believe. It's very, if someone tightens it up so much, oh man, it's really hard to get off. And then it's like you don't want to scrap it. So you really got to be careful not to scrap the bolt, because then at that point it's real hard. It's one of those ones where you really want to take the you really don't want to use a open. You want to use a closed wrench to open it if you can. Make sure you get the proper size, because if you don't get the proper size, it's going to keep. And then when you are taking these off, make it a point to take off whatever's around it, because in order to touch this, you got to take out dang near the exhaust. You got to take out that exhaust piece. You have to take out really the just the metal exhaust itself. Then and after that, even the radiator stuff you may have to take off too. The radiator, the upper radiator hose, the wire, the tube that goes from the radiator to the cooling reservoir. That's something you got to take off. And after you take that off, it still might be a little tight for the most part. You might even have to move the I believe you may have to move, I'm not sure, don't quote me, but you may have to move the cylinder, the oil check cylinder, like where you check the oil. Yeah, you might have to check, you might have to move that too. All that is, you just unscrew the bolt, move it to the side, and then take care of it. But yeah, it's tight. That's the reason why people really don't like working on the F350, because when you work on the F350, you got to get used to being in a tight compartment, and then it's easy to break components, because like the stuff is made out of plastic. A lot of the stuff is plastic, and it's super easy to break plastic. Let's get back to it. So that's what these two, the fuel check valves are. And then, of course, we're talking about the supply towards the heads. And then it goes, and then we have some of it actually returns back into the tank. All right. So let's look at it. It says delivers filtered fuel to the injectors. As you see, we already looked at what the injectors look like and what they should, where we know the oil is at the top. And after that, it doesn't go into it, but it does help the fuel take care of its business. Each banjo bolt requires 2 copper washers. Again, if you're missing one, it's definitely going to leak. Most common leak point after service. And the reason why it leaks after service is because a lot of times your technician may forget to put something back, or is just having an old washer or something silly. It's normally something silly. All right, so the fuel return line returns unused fuel to the tank. Banjo style uses 2 copper washers. That's what we were talking about, the fuel return line. So the fuel return line, where's the fuel return line? So this is the fuel return line right here. All right. and this is connected to the blue spring. So the blue spring belongs right in here. And then with the blue spring, it goes here. Then it has a gasket that's around it, as well as like a low pressure thing that it's like a little plastic piece where it kind of helps push out air, and that it connects here. So this fuel out, this return, the fuel return. All right, that's where the fuel regulator is right there. All right, so quick connect style uses an internal O-ring. That's the little gasket piece I was referring to. The leak symptoms: slow drip, fuel smell, wet engine valley. So if you see a wet engine valley, that may be the reason why you maybe one of the O-rings not there, maybe the washer's not there, maybe it's leaking. You know, it's a few things it could be. So the fuel pressure test port, used to check fuel pressure, sealed by a copper washer, uses Scouter valve core seal. Do not use Teflon tape, and do not use RTV. All right, and then we talk about the fuel filter and cap, fuel filter cap, the large cap O-ring, lightly oil O-ring before install, and then hand tight plus snug only. So again, one thing that you may catch what people do a lot of times is they'll tighten it up and tighten it up and tighten it up. And at that point, if it's plastic, it can break, and then it's super hard to get off. If you are smart, you're going to make it a point to get a socket that covers it. And I believe it's like a 22 or 24, one of those. It's anywhere between 20 to 24 millimeters. Do not over tighten it. Again, you can crack it, and if you crack it, it's going to have fuel push off the top. If you use an aftermarket, it may push out extra fuel depending on if it is an aftermarket and something's not right with it. For the most part, a lot of times some aftermarkets, you want to use them, look good, but you know, things happen with them. So yeah. Again, the way you're going to do it, the fuel filter is on there, and then you put the fuel filter, you take the fuel filter, take it off, you attach it, and then you put it in, and then you put in fact, before you do that, you have to have that O-ring. So take the old O-ring off, put the new filter in. All right, put the new O-ring on, of course, and then you lightly oil it before installing it, and then hand tight it, and you can plus a little snug, where you can take your ratchet and thrash it a little bit, not too much, just a little bit, so it's snug. You want to make it easier, and it's going to be clockwise to close, counterclockwise to open. All right, so when we talk about the fuel bowl drain valve, this is used to drain water in fuel. It's sealed by two O-rings, inner pressure seal, outer dust seal, and common symptoms: slow drip under engine. So we're talking about the Huey, which is the oil, fires, and injectors. Low pressure equals no injection. Fuel and oil system health and directly linked. Hold on one second. Let me check something, because this is okay. So I don't know why you're not showing. It's crazy. It shows right there, but it's not showing there. But okay, all right. So that's something I got to look into later, because I had whole images added to this, but the images are not there. So what I'm gonna do is, after we're done looking at this, I'm gonna just make it a point so we can look at the images by itself, because apparently, okay, there it goes. So yeah. So there you go. So let's look at it. So this is the regulator. All right. And this is going back into the fuel tank. These two right here, this one right here is the fuel in. All right, and remember, it has that banjo bolt with the two washers, and then after that we have the two going into the heads. Those are what we got here as well. right under it, right here. Well, actually, right under it. I don't think you can see it, but that will be where the test and the test port and also the bleeder. I believe that's what it's called, the bleeder. All right, yeah, the drain valve. So yeah, yeah. All right, so we talk about the Huey, the oil system overview. That's what we're looking at. The oil fires the injectors. All right, so that's the reason why it's up top. It works on a high, low pressure system. So the oil is on top of the injectors and it fires off. Low oil pressure equals no injection. So if the oil pressure is too low, the injectors are not going to work. Fuel and oil system health are directly linked. Okay, so looking at this, we have the oil pump, we have an oil cooler, the oil filter, and then the oil reservoir for high pressure pump. Then we have the high pressure oil pump, and then it goes into a line where part of it goes into the ICP sensor, where it senses what's going on, the IPR sensor, and then we have a drain crank as well. And then if it goes through there, and then it also goes through both of the headers. So it goes through the left and right, where then it hits the fuel injectors where it heats up, and then the fuel pushes out. This is a high pressure oil rail. All right. So that's what this is. That's what you're looking at. When you look at the high pressure oil rail, all right. That's what it looks like. This is, again, the high pressure oil rail right here. Okay. All right, let's move on. So we have an oil filter system. When you talk about the oil filter system, it's the oil filter itself. That's what this big filter is. When you look at the upper oil, you look at the upper fuel filter, is going to be a small one. We look at the primary fuel filter is longer, but it's not as long as the oil filter. The oil filter is the longest one. Again, it's one of those ones you have to take off, and then you connect on top, and then you take off. Well, actually, you're supposed to take care of the O-rings before, as you see. And then after that, that's when you attach it. You hand tighten it, and then you tighten it just a little bit more. You don't want to over tighten it for the most part, but you want to make sure that it's snug. So we have the oil filter, the oil filter housing. That's what this metal thing is right here. The bigger one, the bigger component is the oil, and the little bowl right here is the fuel. So one thing about the oil filter, it is directly on top of the oil the oil pan. So this right here is the oil pan right here. If you look at it, so if we're looking at the system, this right here will be the on the very bottom of this will be the very bottom where we have the oil pan. This was what you look at when you're looking inside the oil pan. All right, and then this is the engine itself, as far as, and then on top of this right here, on top of this, you will have the fish bowl and the oil. Okay, that's will be the housing. So a few more things with the oil filter system: the oil filter housing, the oil filter cap, which is not here. It's not showing you the cap. Then we have the standpipe and dummy plugs, as well as the large oil filter cap O-ring. So again, when you're doing that, you want to lightly graze the oil filter O-ring, and then put it on top of the way I kind of take it off. You can take it off with a small screwdriver, or you can take it off with one of those handy dandy little hooks. Hook it off, put it on, put the little old oil on it, load up some of that little bit of new oil. It really doesn't matter, right? So the common leak points for the fuel and oil. So missing copper washers, reused copper washers, dry or damaged O-rings, loose banjo bolts, cracked oil filter caps, worn housing seals. So a lot of times what happens is if you use any of these, you will possibly have a leak. All right. When you're missing one of the copper washers, you're going to have a leak. If you're reusing copper washers, you may have a leak. If there is a dry or damaged O-ring, you may have a leak. If the banjo bolt is loose and is not fully fully in there and tight, it may have a leak. And if it's a cracked oil filter cap, you may have a leak, as well as a worn housing seal. So I had to change out my fish bowl because I accidentally cracked it because of me taking off the cap. After a while, I just got fed up and I just started drilling the cap just to take it off. So if you ever have the opportunity and your engine allows, it is good to get one of those aftermarkets as long as it is compatible with your system. Again, if it's not, you're going to have some issues. Remember, you're dealing with plastic. So when you talk about the plastic little caps, it's easy to break. So when that top breaks at a certain point, well, if you see this image right here, this right here is one that's probably broke. This is probably a real one that's broke. You see there is the fuel filter right there is broke. But with this little top right here, it's easy to break this top. Like, I know that a lot of people, what they do is they'll put like an extension, the tool where the extension ratchet, where you extend it and you just put the rectangular piece or the bottom, the square piece into it, and you can turn it that way. But if you turn it that way, and the plastic will break, and once the plastic starts breaking, it's going to be 10 times harder. And then at that point, you're probably going to have to put a drill. You have to drill both sides and to get it off. And then once you drill both sides, you got to make sure you don't damage a housing. If you damage a housing, you have to do a lot more extra to take care of it. And then at that point, you're going to have to do some things to get it off. As far as what I had to do, I had to drill on this side and that side, take a screwdriver on this way and take a screwdriver that way, and then open it that way, because when I put the screwdriver on one side, it just did not do it. But as soon as I put on both sides, it was easy money. So that's one way to take it off. For the most part, it's just like, it's best not to mess up. And if you're unfortunate enough to pick up one of these and you see that the cap is all the way off, at that point you're gonna have to do some magic. So that's something that sucks about it. If you can get an aftermarket that works, and get an aftermarket that works, they got some neat blue ones and silver ones and things of that nature. I'll recommend doing it. So after you're done doing this kind of work right here, it is best, when we talk about the inspection portion and verification procedures, clean all fittings after service, key on, engine off, watch closely for seepage, start engine, reinspect after 5 minutes. If fuel or oil is wet, stop and fix it. So that's one thing that we can do, where again, you make sure that you clean all the fixed fittings after the service, key on, engine off, look underneath and see if there's any seepage. Then you start the engine after there's no seepage, then reinspect after 5 minutes to see that there's nothing wet. If fuel or oil is wet, stop and fix. That's one thing that you have to do. Now, a lot of times when you get them aftermarkets that have like the little the openings, I guess you can it may seep out that way. At that point, you may have to change. So final takeaway, the training focus. All right, every banjo boat requires 2 copper washers. Never reuse crushed copper washers. Oil seals protect injector life. Small leaks turn into major failures. And discipline beats speed. All right. So at this point, what I like to do is I like to learn from other people. That's one thing I love to do. So What we're gonna do, we're gonna be looking at a few videos of other people with their little mistakes that they've done, so we can learn from them instead of us actually having to go through it. So in that note, give me 2 seconds. And we're off.
Okay, crank it. Okay.
That there's an issue. It looked like the person ripped that fuel line. It's easy to rip them fuel
If you
lines.
want to stop your 6.7 Powerstroke oil leaks before they start, you need to listen up. This one item I'm talking about right now is the #1 cause for oil leaks on the 6.7 Powerstroke, and that is the crankcase filter. The crankcase filter sits up here on the driver's side valve cover, and it is responsible for getting all of that crankcase pressure out of the engine so that it doesn't blow out oil pan gaskets and injector grommets and things like that. Now, this is an item that a lot of people don't know about. It is a maintenance item. It's something you should be replacing about every 50,000 miles. This truck here has 285,000 on it. If you see the injector code sticker up on top of that crankcase filter, you are looking at the original one. They do not put those stickers on the replacement crankcase filters, only when they come from the factory. Ford has had several different crankcase filters over the years. They've changed and revised this thing. 17, 18, and 19 trucks, some of those had the serviceable crankcase filter that you could actually pull apart. Those are garbage. If you have one of those, take it off, throw it in the garbage, and get you one of the older styles, or the new 2000, I think it's 22, have some slim crankcase filters that work just as good. You can put on any 6.7. Believe me, the valve covers are the identical, exact same valve cover on every single one of them. They just changed the crankcase filters over time, I guess due to emissions regulations, but you just want to make sure that you are servicing that thing pretty regularly, because it can save you a lot of money down the road when it comes to oil leaks.
We're going to show you something, a little trick here. Let's pull this fuel filter off here.
You see them aftermarkets.
Now Dylan, you know, he's full of tricks. Tricks of the trade, so he's going to show you one right here. He's going to show you that the injectors are leaking. Go ahead, you want me to crank on it?
Yeah, so these 6.0s, they have a starter wire that's over here that you can unplug. And then you can run this to your battery positive lead, and then you can crank it without having to turn the key. So as I crank it here, you can watch the fuel over there.
So watch the fuel.
You see it start spraying like that.
So what's that telling you?
So that tells me, because the fuel pump's turned off, so there should be no pressure at all. So
Yeah,
we're
the
getting
key.
pressure from our injectors fed back through the fuel rail into the fuel filter housing.
Yeah.
So it's a good sign to tell that the seals are going bad in your injectors
Yep.
too.
So
test.
that should not happen. That's what we're trying to show you. So if you've got a truck smoking, a 6.0 that's smoking like that, this is a quick little trick to tell you it's time, you know, you got injector seals that are leaking. So you better deal with it, or you'll burn your truck down. That's a trick.
Okay, I'm gonna have to do that myself.
All right, we got a no start on a 6-liter and an F350 here. So I cranked good, made good low pressure oil. Then I put some air, injected air into the high pressure oil system, and heard just a massive leak. So I took it apart a little bit just to see what was going on, and really sounded like it was coming from the pump here. And it looks like the fitting's been updated and someone's put an EGR cooler on it, poorly I might add. But listen to this. So when I crack the air, it shouldn't be making any noise. And it's all coming right out of here, which tells me that the pump has gone bad. it's just pushing air right back through. So this truck needs a high pressure oil pump, and it should work fine. But I think we should also, we'll check under the valve covers, we'll check the standpipes and the dummy plugs, and this one's not studded, so maybe we'll bulletproof it.
Was that coming from that line? I think that's coming from that line. Yeah, it's coming from that line.
Here are the most common oil leaks on every single Power Stroke. I own 7 Power Strokes and a D-store repair shop, so we see oil leaks every single day on these Power Strokes, and here are the most common. On the 7.3 Power Stroke, I would say the valve covers and the high pressure oil pump gasket, and then also the oil pan. So those 3 right there are one of the more common areas to leak, as well as the turbo pedestal where the O-ring sits. On the 6-leaker Power Stroke, the rear main seal, oil pan, pretty much if it can leak, if a gasket can leak, the 6-liter is going to make sure that it leaks. There's a couple other spots as well, like the high pressure oil pump. That's why it gets its name, the 6-leaker. The 6.7 Power Stroke will be the upper oil pan, and this is one of our #1 customers that come in with oil leaks. I think the reason is because these trucks are a lot more expensive than the 6.0 and the 7.3 to buy, and customers want to get it fixed and get it fixed right, and they don't want to have leaks on a very nice truck like the 6.7 Power Stroke. The reason that these leak more is because of the crankcase filter. The crankcase ventilation filter is actually back there, and customers will fail to change that. It'll cause excess crankcase pressure and it'll blow out seals. The first spot it likes to stop is the upper oil pan. The upper oil pan leaks a lot on these, and that's kind of the main spot that these leak.
Been there, baby. Oh man.
Turn it off and prime it again.
Prank and pray, baby. Prank and pray.
Hold the gas.
All right, 6-liter Power Stroke owners, have you ever had this kind of situation happen?
Yeah, that's what I was telling you about earlier.
Plastic cap break. You put a maybe you put a half-inch impact or something in the center of it and tried to get it off. Wasn't very smart. You broke it. Now you don't know how to get it off. But truth is, you're probably gonna have to chisel it off. But I want to show you a really inexpensive upgrade you can make to make sure that this never happens again, and that is a billet aluminum fuel filter housing kit. So this is going to come with a cap here, and it also has a bleed hole here in the top of the cap that you can take out if you need to. I don't know why you would ever need to, but it comes with it. This is very, very inexpensive. This one is actually made by Sinister Diesel. I will link it up down below if you guys want to go check it out. Huge upgrade. You definitely don't want to be running into this whenever you try to replace your fuel filter. You got to keep them clean.
Okay, so today I have a 2006 Ford Power Stroke, and it's got an oil leak. Now, most of the time when these things leak oil, it's either going to be coming from the oil cooler housing itself. If you're running an aftermarket oil cooler, I've seen the gaskets, they're just junk, and the O-rings will fail. So you want to stay away from any Chinese oil coolers. The only oil cooler that I run is the Max Force oil coolers, and you can get them only at Ford or International. So if you're running a Ford Motorcraft oil cooler, you know that most of the time your leak is not going to be coming from the oil cooler housing. But there are components on the oil cooler housing that can fail and that can cause an oil leak as well. Another thing that can leak is the drain tube and the intake tube for the oil onto the turbo. So you got your oil cooler, which has your oil filter in it on the top, and then you have your turbo at the top that can actually leak oil underneath. And I'm going to show you how I diagnose it. Alright, so I'm on the passenger side of the truck underneath. I just took it for a drive here and brought it into the shop. So right here is water. This is from the AC condenser, so we're not going to worry about that. This is oil, and this is a good amount of oil here. It shouldn't be leaking that much. We
You're right about that.
And you can see right here on the transmission line, it's leaking oil from the passenger side. So it's coming from the passenger side somewhere, but on these engines you want to start at the top and work your way down. So let's go to the top of the truck and see what's going on up there. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is I take a air blower nozzle right here and I just blow out all the fluid that could be sitting right here next to the oil cooler. So anything underneath it on both sides, I take it and just blow down right here to kind of clean it up. You can also use brake cleaner and clean it up with that as well. So I can see it's dry here. Let's see if I can get some good light on this. So it's dry down there on that side, and it's also semi-dry. It's a little wet right here. So what's happening is oil's coming from somewhere in this area and going back, and it's running back to the back of the block, and that's what it'll usually do. You can see there's a lot of oil right there. So it's coming from somewhere in this vicinity. So that's an easy find. So now, most of the time, I've seen oil leak from the drain tube on this, but since it's kind of dry around the stem, it doesn't look like it's coming from that. So it's coming from the oil cooler somewhere. So what I usually do is I have a cap. Let me pause this for a second. Okay, so you can find these billet caps online. You can get them off of Amazon or eBay or wherever, and they sell them for the fuel and they sell one for oil. If you get one for the oil, what I do is I put it's an eighth inch NPT or national pipe thread. You can put a fitting in this for air, and what this will allow me to do is I can actually take the cap off, put the billet one on, and then air this up to pressurize the oil system from the top. What this will let me do is actually it'll push oil out wherever it's coming from. So it makes it a little easier, so you don't have to start the truck and keep it running to actually find out where it's coming from. But for right now, since a lot of people don't have this, we're gonna go ahead and start the truck, and I'm gonna run it and find out where the oil is coming from. Okay, if you look very closely, there's actually oil coming out of the pressure switch.
Yeah, you gotta turn that thing on to figure out where it's coming from.
Okay, so what we witnessed with the truck running is you can see there's a lot of oil on the top of the oil pressure switch, and what was happening is oil is just flowing right out of the top of that connector. So there's obviously something wrong with the pressure switch on this truck, which is causing it to leak oil. So we're going to change the pressure switch and then start it back up and see if it leaks oil anymore, but I doubt it will. So that's the problem on this one. Most of the time, like I said before, if you use a Motorcraft oil cooler, you shouldn't have any leaks whatsoever. But I've seen it happen with the Chinese ones. So you can see how this one kind of built up oil again in the back, and it's just running down the back here. So that I'll change out the pressure switch, and we should be good to go. I've seen that happen before. I've seen them leak on the pressure switches, and I've also seen oil come out of the top of the ICP sensor as well. If the ICP sensors fail, they could still be working, but I've seen oil just basically just start gushing out of the top of those sensors as well. So since I know it's pretty dry right there, it's obviously not coming from there, it's coming from the center of the engine somewhere, and that's pretty much the fix for this truck. So a new pressure switch and this truck will be done. If you guys have any questions regarding oil leaks or anything like that, or just basic 6.0 Power Stroke issues, please feel free to comment, and I'll get back to you and try to help you out as best I can. Thank you.
Direct Hit DIY is the greatest thing to happen to DIY auto repair since the torque wrench. Identifix Direct Hit DIY gives you access.
Okay, so what we have here is my personal 2007 Ford F350. I was having problems with the truck running, correctly, it would randomly die and it wouldn't want to start back up. Well, after some diagnosis, I found out that there was fuel in the oil and it thinned it out and it wasn't holding enough oil pressure to run. So I ordered a whole new set of injector seals for the entire engine, and I changed them out, which is pretty much the only way you're going to get fuel in your oil is through the injector seals being bad. But even after doing that, it got worse, and I was draining a couple extra gallons plus the oil that I put in it every couple weeks. So within 1,000 miles or so, it would accumulate a couple gallons of fuel in my oil, which explains why my engine looks so clean inside. But even after changing the injector seals, it was still bad. It's still leaking fuel into the oil. As you can see, there's absolutely nothing wrong with these. They're brand new, all the way up to the connector. But when I purchased new fuel injectors thinking that there's something wrong internally with these. I don't know, they were all secondhand injectors out of another parts engine I have. But when taking out the hold downs, I noticed that there's a thick coating of oil on them, every single one of them so far. And then come to find out, when you look down here, which is the hold down bolt hole, it's not a through hole, so there's a bottom to it. So if there's oil down in there and you're trying to torque the injector down to spec, then it won't be accurate because of the oil that's in the bottom. So if and when you run into this issue, be sure to clean this hole out before reinstalling the new injector or the old injector with the seals replaced on it. I'll put the torque specs for the oil rail and the fuel injector hold down bolts in the comments. Thanks for watching.
Welcome to Ford Tech Talk. In this series, we'll focus on tips to help you fix Ford and Lincoln vehicles right the first time. Have your customers come in with questions about white smoke coming from the tailpipe of their Ford diesel-equipped vehicle? Excessive white smoke from the tailpipe may be the sign of a larger issue. Some white smoke from the tailpipe under certain conditions is considered normal. For example, you might see a little when warming up the vehicle on a cold day, or during some modes of regeneration, which we'll talk about later in this video. If your customers sometimes have white smoke concerns, though, this video will help you determine what's causing the issues. We're going to take a look at several possible causes, starting by ruling out the easiest components to check first and moving to the more complex repair diagnostics. Before you begin any repairs, verify the customer's white smoke concern. Then, use the Integrated Diagnostic System, or IDS, to identify any diagnostic trouble codes, or DTCs, that may be present in the Powertrain Control Module, or PCM. Next, check the publications for any technical service bulletins or special service messages on white smoke. In some older 6-liter engines, customers can experience white smoke after a cold engine startup or one of these DTCs. You can find a complete listing in Ford Technical Services Bulletin 924-3. If that combination occurs, refer to the Calibration Content Technical Services Bulletin for additional details and reprogram the PCM using your updated IDS scan tool. It will automatically update the necessary modules to the latest settings. Before you tear into the engine, start by checking for customer modifications. These add-ons may cause a diesel engine to start producing white smoke, and they're often easy to spot and to remove. Ford Motor Company does not endorse any of the following modifications being made to its vehicles. First, check for exhaust modifications the customer may have made. Many Ford diesel-equipped vehicles built after 2007 have a diesel particulate filter, or DPF system, that traps the diesel particulate matter, the black soot produced by the engine, and burns it down to ash in the regeneration process. These engines have a special exhaust tip that can contribute a minimal amount of white smoke. It disperses part of the exhaust, helping the system to function properly. Changing this tip can create a white smoke issue and alter the function of the exhaust system. Then, check for intake modifications the customer might have made. Changing the type of charge air cooler or performing any modifications to the air intake system to provide increased airflow to the engine could affect the temperature of incoming air and create too much condensation. That could affect combustion, which could produce white smoke from the tailpipe. If you don't find any modifications, check the coolant and oil levels to see if they're low. There could be an external leak causing low coolant or an internal leak causing coolant consumption, leading to white smoke. A low oil level and white smoke could suggest a leaking turbocharger. But if you're still not finding the cause of the white smoke, the next item on the checklist is the charge air cooler. This is generally not the cause in a 6.0 diesel, where the charge air cooler is smaller and doesn't condense the same volume of air. But in other diesel engines, moisture can collect in the charge air cooler and get carried into the intake manifold and engine. When you combine a heavy RPM load with certain drive cycle conditions, such as heavy acceleration, this moisture can move through the intake and burn off, producing excessive white smoke. In a 6.4-liter diesel, there is a special set of circumstances to watch for that can indicate a fault with the charge air cooler. When the white smoke only occurs in high humidity or rainy conditions, and only during moderate to heavy acceleration after 20 minutes of steady-state driving, with no other DTCs present, and you've ruled out excessive regeneration as the cause, then the charge air cooler is likely the cause, due to an older level part. Check the charge air cooler part number to see if you need to perform the TSB. In the 6.7-liter, you'll need to check both the primary and secondary cooling systems, which doubles the items to check. Is there a significant loss of coolant and liquid running out of the tailpipe? If so, there's likely an internal leak in the exhaust gas recirculation, or EGR cooler. And visually inspect for any obvious external leaks around the EGR cooler, but take care not to pressurize the system while checking. That could cause a hydrolock, as coolant may flow into the cylinders when the system is pressurized. On a diesel engine, 3 different systems work together: the intake, the exhaust, and the cooling system. The EGR cooler is the most likely cause of coolant intrusion into either the intake or the exhaust system. Check the hoses first. If you don't find any external leaks, you'll want to dig deeper. Internal coolant usage can be caused by EGR internal component leaks. For a 6-liter, the EGR valve can be removed and the intake inspected for coolant. For a 3.2-liter, the exhaust back pressure, or EBP sensor, can be removed at the rear of the horizontal EGR cooler and the port checked for steam or coolant. For the 3.0-liter, 3.2-liter, and 6.7-liter, the EGR cooler will need to be removed and bench tested to confirm any internal leaks. If the fluid in the exhaust is engine oil, you'll need to inspect the turbocharger for a possible seal or bearing failure, or both. If the cooling system and turbocharger check out and the engine will run or rotate, you'll want to check the fuel system using the IDS. Check the fuel correction PID data with the IDS scan tool. It should show the fuel correction adjustment that you need to have equal cylinder contributions. If a cylinder is contributing too much, the PCM will make a correction by lowering the fuel correction value. This step happens in an effort to equalize contribution across neighboring cylinders. If a cylinder isn't contributing enough, the PCM will make an adjustment by increasing the fuel correction value. It's these adjustments that help provide a smooth idle. If the PCM is significantly lowering the fuel correction value and the cylinder in question is still contributing too much, that means there's an injector leaking. This situation will likely lead to fuel knocking. Keep in mind, a diesel engine runs on what you feed it. The more fuel, the faster it goes. Give your Ford, Lincoln, and Mercury customers impressive performance by choosing Motorcraft air filters. Motorcraft air filters help eliminate dirt particles that can enter through the air intake system and create an imbalance in the precise mix of air and fuel to the engine. The dry-type cleaner elements are chemically treated to withstand oil and moisture damage. Made to fit each application, they test to a 98.5% efficiency standard in coarse dust testing, with excellent dirt-holding properties. And when you're choosing parts for all of your repairs, remember that Motorcraft parts feature a 2-year, unlimited mileage warranty. That's all for this post. Thanks for watching. Check out the rest of our series of installation and repair tips for Ford or Lincoln vehicles. For more information on Ford or Motorcraft parts, contact your Ford or Lincoln dealer or distributor, or visit fordparts.com.
That's our last one.
Never ever sue the driver who crashed into you after a car accident. There's a better way to get compensated that's faster, easier. White smoke billowing from your diesel exhaust. Is your engine about to fail? Should you panic? Today, I am breaking down everything you need to know about white smoke from diesel exhaust, what it means, and what you need to do about it. But here's what most people don't realize. Not all white smoke is created equal. Some types are completely harmless, while others signal catastrophic engine damage happening right now. The difference could mean a simple fix versus a complete engine replacement. The key is knowing exactly what type you're dealing with and how to respond fast. First, let's talk about the harmless type. If you see thin white smoke that looks more like steam on a cold morning, and it disappears within a few minutes of starting your engine, you're probably just seeing condensation. This happens when moisture in your exhaust system evaporates as the engine heats up. Completely normal and nothing to worry about. But if that white smoke is thick, persistent, or has a strong smell, you've got a problem that needs immediate attention. The most common cause of problematic white smoke is unburned diesel fuel making its way through your exhaust system. This happens when your combustion chamber isn't hot enough to properly burn the fuel. Think of it like trying to light a campfire with wet wood. The fuel just doesn't ignite properly. Several things can cause this. Faulty fuel injectors are the #1 culprit. These precision components need to spray fuel at exactly the right time and in the perfect pattern. When they fail, they might dump too much fuel into the cylinder or spray it at the wrong time, leaving raw diesel to exit through your exhaust as white smoke. Injection timing problems can also cause white smoke. Diesel engines rely on precise timing to compress air to the right temperature before injecting fuel. If your timing is off, even by a few degrees, you won't get proper combustion. Low compression is another major cause. Worn piston rings, damaged valves, or cylinder wear can reduce compression below the level needed for proper diesel combustion. Without enough compression, you can't generate the heat needed to ignite the fuel. Now here's another common cause of white exhaust smoke. If your white smoke has a sweet smell, almost like antifreeze, you're looking at coolant entering your combustion chamber. This is bad news because it usually means your head gasket is blown, or you have cracks in your cylinder head or engine block. When coolant gets into your combustion chamber, it burns along with the fuel, creating thick white smoke with that distinctive sweet odor. This isn't just about the smoke. Coolant and oil don't mix well, and this contamination can destroy your engine bearings and cause massive internal damage if you keep running the engine. You can confirm coolant contamination by checking your oil dipstick. Instead of clear dark oil, you'll see a milky, frothy substance that looks like a chocolate milkshake. You might also notice your coolant level dropping without any visible leaks, or find oily residue around your radiator cap. Cold weather adds another layer to this puzzle. If your glow plugs aren't working properly, your engine might struggle to reach proper combustion temperature, especially on cold starts. Faulty glow plugs can cause white smoke that persists until your engine fully warms up. This is particularly common in older diesel engines or those with high mileage. Fuel quality can also play a role. Water contamination in your diesel fuel, often from condensation in your fuel tank, can cause white smoke. The water doesn't burn, so it creates steam that exits as white smoke. So what should you do if you're seeing white smoke? First, don't panic, but don't ignore it either. If it's thin and disappears quickly on a cold morning, monitor it for a few days. If it persists or gets worse, you need professional help. Never continue driving if you're seeing thick, persistent white smoke, especially if it has a sweet smell. This could indicate coolant contamination, and running your engine in this condition can cause thousands of dollars in damage. For diagnosis, a good diesel mechanic will start with a compression test to check your cylinder health. They'll also test your fuel injectors, check your injection timing, and inspect your cooling system for leaks. Modern diagnostic tools can pinpoint exactly which cylinder might be causing problems. Prevention is always better than repair. Regular maintenance is crucial for diesel engines. Change your fuel filters on schedule, use quality diesel fuel, and don't let your engine idle excessively in cold weather. Keep your cooling system maintained and check your coolant levels regularly. That's it for today. If you find this video helpful, don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.
All right, so just a real quick review on the pattern of how the fuel goes. So the fuel is in the fuel tank, then it goes through the pump inside the unit. Okay, inside the same unit, it goes through the primary filter, and then it goes through the fuel line into the fuel bowl. Remember, it's 4 different lines that hit the fuel bowl. One is the intake, one is 2 are going to both of the heads as far as the left and right head, and the 4th one is going back into the tank. All right, and the ones that go into the head will be going into the injectors, where it has a high pressure oil, where the oil heats it up, and then the injectors injects the fuel. All right, so that's the way that works. As far as being able to identify there's any kind of problems, normally it may be like a washer or something missing from a banjo boat. That could be it. Remember, like, what happens a lot of times is you take something off and something drops, and at that point the technician might not put both pieces back on, and that may cause it. Or one of the things are not as tight as they should be. That happens too. If you tighten it up, it happens. If the plastic is too tight on, it can actually damage it. If there's any kind of like abrasions, or I should say any kind of defects in the caps, that's possible. So there could be seepage, or just all out squirting action coming out of the caps. If you are able to replace the caps with something that's a little bit more sturdy than using the plastic ones, because the plastic ones tend to break. If you are going to take it off and do it yourself, make it a point to use the sockets that actually cover it all for the most part, or use the channel locks to open it up if worst case. I don't recommend using the channel locks if you can help it, because using the channel locks it tends to break the plastic. So if you are going to use that, make it a point to be careful with it, because once it breaks like, oh man, it breaks. So yeah, one thing, if you have any questions concerning your F350, it really don't matter what year, for the most part, just go ahead and let me know. If you have any kind of suggestions on, what someone else can do, that'd be great. Just like, my main thing is the more you know, especially trying to get on this road. I don't plan on getting back on the road in the F350 until I bulletproof it. Just because I don't want them issues where I'm on the road for a good month and a half and all of a sudden I got to stop for whatever reason. So yeah, when we talk about the oil pattern, the oil flow, all right, it first goes into the reservoir, which is the oil pan. The oil pan stores the engine oil. All right, it supplies oil to low pressure oil pump. And then after the low pressure oil pump, the LPOP, it's driven by the engine, which supplies oil to the engine bearings, the oil filter housing, as well as the high pressure oil pump. So yeah, then after that, the oil filter housing, what happens is it filters the oil before it reaches the sensitive components. The houses will be the oil filter, the oil cooler, stand pipes, and dummy plugs. This is all internal. Restricted oil flow here. So then if there's a problem, there's an injector issue. All right. So at that point, when we talk about the oil cooler, it cools the engine oil. It shares coolant passages, as well as common failure point when coolant is contaminated. So if you really think about the way the bulletproofing should work, it should be some kind of if you're doing it air to oil, that means that it's like an external kind of radiator. But if you're doing it on where it's directly connected, it's like a metal aluminum piece that attaches right onto the engine itself, and that will help the oil cool. So that's just a little bit on that. When we talk about the high pressure oil pump, the HPOP, the pressurized oil is up to, I believe, around like 500 to like 4,000 PSI. It supplies oil needed to fire injectors, as well as is being controlled by the IPR. I believe that's the injection pressure regulators. And then after that, it goes through the high pressure oil reels, where it's located on the cylinder heads. Remember, the oil, the fuel line goes to both the left and the right, and it's the high pressure. So on the very top is where the oil goes, and it distributes high pressure oil evenly in those injectors. And seal integrity is critical. If the seal integrity isn't, that's when you start getting that mix of that oil seeping into those injectors, and it's not going to be good. Then once you talk about the injectors, again, the HEUI, the HEUI, the oil pressure hydraulically actuates the injectors. Electrical signal controls timing, as well as the oil pressure controls injection force. No oil pressure means that there's no fuel injection. There's also the ICP sensor, where the injector control pressure. It monitors actual oil pressure, feeds data into the PCM. The PCM adjusts IPR accordingly. And then we talk about the oil return path. In the oil exits injectors, returns to crankcase, and then it cycles, repeats continuously. So it goes all the way back into. So the key concept: fuel does not fire injectors on a 6.0. The oil does. Fuel is delivered because oil pressure allows it. So it's not the fuel that pressures it, it's the oil. So all them times you hear about people saying it's a high pressure system, that's what they're referring to. The high pressure meaning that it heats up, the oil actually starts the triggering of the injectors at the very top, and there's a entrance of where the fuel line comes, that's underneath where the oil is. The oil is at top, the fuel is like right in the middle, and at that point, that's where it comes out at. All right. Common HEUI failure points that we should be talking about: the oil cooler restrictions, the HPOP leaks, the high pressure leaks, the standpipe and dummy plug O-rings, as well as the IPR valve failures and the ICP sensor contamination. And so that's all I really have. But I would like to go over this one article before we call it quits. All right. And the reason why I like to go over this article is because this article is high pressure oil system diagnostic procedures for Ford 6.0 liter. The high pressure HP oil system that used for the fuel injection system on the Ford 6.0 liter engines can be very tricky and time consuming to diagnose when problems arise. You know how tight it is. It's very tight. It is important to have an understanding on how the system works to be able to accurately diagnose and repair it. Here is a little background on this system before we begin. Let's start with a description of the components in the high pressure oil system. So we have a round style HPOP, fits 2003 to 2004, and this is a squarely style HPOP, which fits the 2005 to 2010. So we're probably going to be looking at this right here. High pressure, what's that called? Yeah, high pressure oil system. All right, so high pressure oil pump. So this is a cam gear driven pump that is supplied with oil from reservoir on the top of the engine block. The reservoir, which is shared with the OEM oil cooler, is used to keep a constant supply of oil available for the HP oil system. Oil is picked up from the oil pan and sent from the low pressure oil pump to the oil cooler through the oil filter into the HP oil reservoir. From there, the oil is fed to the HPOP, the high pressure oil pump, pressurized and sent to the oil rails and fuel injectors. This pump is responsible for providing the volume of oil required for each injection cycle. There are two different styles of HPOP. The early trucks, 2003 to 2004, use in aluminum bodied swash plate style pump that fails often. The late trucks, 05 and up, use a cast iron V4 configured pump. This is late style pump, has very few problems. All right, just taking a look at it again. All right, it has very few problems. The main issue that is seen with the late pumps is the snap to connect fitting, the STC, the snap to connect fitting, coming apart and causing a leak. Normally, after replacing the STC fitting with the updated part, the pump will continue to work without issue. So the injection control pressure sensor, the ICP, this 3-wire variable capacitance sensor uses a 5-volt reference signal that supplies the PCM with a voltage reading that indicates system pressure. It is primarily used to provide a feedback system. Feedback signal to the PCM for use in IPR valve modulation. The ICP sensor signal is also used for the FICM to command the fuel injection timing. The injection pressure regulator, the IPR, the injection pressure regulator valve, the valve is what controls the pressure in the HP oil system. This is a normally open valve that is duty cycle controlled by the PCM. The valve works by closing to create a restriction to the oil drain path. As the valve closes, the restriction increases and the pressure of the HP oil system is increased. So a few images of the early ICP, the late ICP, and then after that, the IPR valve. Just kind of looking at them. So that way, when you do see them in real life, you know what they are. All right. So it just looks like they're really the same. The only difference is the color. There's a color and the shape is just a little different, but you can tell they kind of twist in on the same thing, the both of the ICPs. All right. The J tube or the snap to fitting connection fitting, this part connects the HPOP to the branch tube, which supplies both sides of the engine with HP oil to fire the injections, high pressure oil. High pressure oil rails, standpipes, and dummy plugs. These standpipes are used to provide a connection between the branch tube and high pressure oil rail. The high pressure oil rails are used as a manifold to supply each bank of injectors with HP oil. They also act as a reservoir for oil in the system. The HP oil rails come in two varied varieties. The early trucks have straight, round rails, and the late trucks have large, wavy rails. There are multiple differences between the two. The standpipes are different. Early ones are threaded into the branch tube and use a quick disconnect style braided stainless steel line to connect to the oil rail. The late style standpipes are no longer threaded and consist of two sections. The upper section of the standpipe passes through the oil rail and seals it from leaks. The bottom section uses an O-ring seal where it connects to the branch tube. So you see this right here will be the J tube, STC fitting. All right. Then we have the wavy oil rail, kind of wavy. Then we have the straight round oil rail. Then we have the standpipes and dummy plugs. Branch tube, the supply tube that feeds HP oil supply to each bank of injectors via the standpipes in HP oil rails. Fuel injectors. This is where the magic happens. The fuel injector consists of two separate circuits, oil and fuel. The injectors use a spool valve that operates using a 48-volt signal in 20-amp pulse to open and close the valve at the top of the injector. The spool valve, once opened, allows the pressurized oil to enter the injector. The hydraulic force of the oil pressure is multiplied by 7.1 times using an intensifier piston to push the fuel out of the injector into the combustion chamber. This can result in fuel pressure upwards of 28,000 psi. And again, that will be the intensifier piston. So the intensifier piston is located somewhere in there. All right, and after that, the HP oil system is contained internally inside the engine. If there is a leak in the system, it should not be visible externally. The most common instance of an external leak would apply to 2003 and early 2004 models where the ICP sensor is located on the HPOP, the high pressure OP system. Cover. On those trucks, it is possible for the oil to leak through the body of the sensor and would present itself as an external oil leak at the rear of the engine. Replacement of the ICP sensor would be the appropriate repair in the instance, and usually it requires replacement of wiring pigtail as well. It is well known that the HP oil system can be quite problematic. Too often, problems associated with the high pressure system are misdiagnosed, resulting in lost time and money, and the problem remains. If done properly, problems within the system can be figured out with a minimum amount of effort and hassle. Here is a guide that our own techs use to shop in the shop to diagnose the high pressure system quickly, efficiently, and definitely. Tools needed will be a Ford repair data, mechanical oil pressure gauge, scan tool or data monitor, telescoping mirror, selection of wrenches, ratchets, sockets, and extensions, IPR valve shock socket, the ICP sensor socket, a known good IPR valve, shop towels. All right, so almost done. Let's go ahead and finish off strong. Check for trouble codes and write them down. This will help aid in the diagnostic process. So normally what they say, put it on the machine, see what's going on, write the codes down. And a lot of times, whatever kind of system that you're using, you'll kind of look up the codes and go from there. Duplicate the problem and verify that the crank no start is not being caused by something else. Check oil level and quality. Check base engine oil pressure. If the base engine oil pressure is lower than 12 psi, verify proper operation of the low pressure system. If the pressure is 12 psi or above, continue to the next step. Use a data monitor scan tool during cranking to determine if a high pressure oil leak may be the problem. If the base engine oil pressure is above 12 psi with engine fully warmed up, the IPR duty cycle reaches 85% during cranking, and the ICP does not reach 500 to 600 plus PSI, the high pressure oil system may be compromised. If a high pressure oil leak is suspended, proceed to the next step. Disconnect the ICP sensor in passenger side valve cover on 2004 to 2004.5 and newer, back of engine old under turbo 2003 to basically 2004, and try to start. If the truck starts and runs with ICP disconnected, the ICP sensor or wiring may be the problem. So again, if truck starts and it runs with ICP disconnected, the ICP sensor and or wiring may be the problem. Replace and retest as necessary. If truck still won't start in or run, proceed to step 7. Remove the IPR and inspect screen. If the screen is blocked by debris, replace the screen. Determine the source of the debris and take corrective action. If screen is damaged or missing, replace IPR. If problem persists, proceed to step 8. Step 8, remove both valve covers. While cranking the engine, inspect for gross oil leak from the top O-ring seal on each injector. Note, the injector has a small oil port to exhaust the high pressure oil once through the injector body, so some leakage from the port on the injector is considered normal. A gross leak may be described as oil shooting, spraying out from under the oil rail. If no gross leak is observed, proceed to the next step. If the truck is a 2003 to 2004 and has round oil rails, inspect the under valve cover braided hose connection at both ends of each hose for gross leakage while trying to start the engine. If truck is 2004 and later with wavy oil rails, remove the standpipes and dummy plugs to inspect all O-rings. If braided hoses or standpipes and dummy plugs are ruled out, proceed to step 10. Note, there are updated standpipes and dummy plugs with improved O-rings, identified by the wrench size that fits them. A 1/2-inch square drive or 10 millimeter Allen equals old style. 12 millimeter Allen means it's updated. If problems persist, proceed to the next step. So the next step will be remove the high pressure oil, the high pressure OP cover. If truck is a 2003 to 2004 with a round swash plate style pump, inspect J-tube connections at the pump and branch tube. If connections are intact and properly sealing, replace the high pressure pump. If truck is 2005 or newer with a cast iron piston style pump, inspect the STC, that's the snap to connect fitting for damage or failure. If snap to connect fitting, if the snap to connect has failed, came apart, inspect carefully for damage where the branch tube may have connected. contacted the back cover of the engine. In some instances, this impact during failure can fracture the rear cover, causing a continuous external oil leak. If snap to connect fitting is still intact, remove the HPOP in snap to connect fitting and inspect for compromised O-ring seals under each. Correct O-ring seal issues and replace the snap to connect fitting and retest. If the truck still won't start, replace the HPO and retest. All right, so this right here can be found at bulletproofdiesel.com, and bulletproofdiesel.com is a great source of information for your 6.0, 6.7, or 7.3, or even in your 5.4. It's great information. So this really concludes what we got going on. So if you like learning more about cars and things of that nature, vehicles, trucks, what I've been working on mainly, again, after like the F350 is cranking, the F350 still has a couple of issues with it, and because of that, I'd rather go ahead and bulletproof it before I actually get it on the road. And so because of that, I will be probably trying to rent a box truck for the next month or so. And with the NPR, I need a new brain. In the brain of the NPR or the computer, the PCM looks like this. This right here is was connected like right under the steering wheel, and for the most part, it's cost around like $250 or so. The FS1, they'll do it and send it out. If you get it from the store itself, you're most likely going to have to go and program it. So I recommend going to a place that will program it for you, like FS1. They're not paying me to say that, but at the same time, if they do decide, I ain't too opposed. But moving on. But yeah, for the most part, what I'm saying is, instead of you buying it from a store, the PCM or Computer Brain, I recommend going to one of them places, because when you are dealing with the same family, they as far as like, let's say with the 2003, 2007, let's say I was trying to get one of those PCMs or ECMs or whatever. I'm pretty sure that it'll probably be compatible at a certain point. A lot of them may be compatible, may not be compatible. You don't know if it's a year under or a year over. You might be good. At the same time, it still has VIN. You might have to still recode it and do all the stuff, and then it might not do it correctly, because the brain, it tells it when to fire, when to do this, when to do that. And if that is not working, then you're not going to be able to crank it. It's not going to turn on. So yeah. So if you like talking about cars, go ahead, like, comment, subscribe, make it a point to talk about your F350, the stuff you have wrong with it, because after a while, we're not going to be talking about F350. We're going to be talking about the F150. Again, I am trying to make it a point to get some things done. And then once I get some things done, get a little bit of money in the pocket, then I'll be trying to invest in trying to fix up the F150. And then after that, again, the plan for 2006, buy 4, keep 1. All right. So my plan is to buy 4 F150s, and then I'm gonna keep 1 of them. All right. Now, the reason I'm doing it that way is because when you learn one, you can figure out the second one. Once you get the second one, the third one's super easy, and the fourth one is cakewalk. And then at that point, anybody need to come to me about dealing with the F-150, I'm the man. That's just my logic. And after that, another vehicle that we're going to be looking for is a G35. I already fixed one of them up. So I already got 1 out of 4 that I need to go over. And honestly, I'm trying to get my people to get new cars, is because I want to work on something new. And I just say that because when you know what you're doing, you don't have to pay as much. So instead of, like, I recommend everybody learning at least how to change your own oil. I at least recommend everybody learn how to change your own oil, unless you're a lady and you're just too ladylike. And if you're too much of a lady, then I understand. But if you're a man, I recommend you learn how to change a tire and at least learn how to check your oil and replace your oil when you need it in the oil filter and all that, and then be able to check your fuels, the levels and things like that, just to be able to maintain, because your tires and your fuel fluid levels will be one of the reasons why you will be on the side of the road. It's been a lot of times where somebody be driving and the vehicle overheat. That's another thing too, being able to understand your gauges. So it's bare minimum, if you're not a car person, that is something that you need to know. But if you made it this far, you're definitely a car person. So that's just too much information. But let's go ahead and close it up. And next time we are going to be talking about more about bulletproofing. This one, we're going to talk about bulletproofing. We're going to talk more about the F350 and just really more things about it. So today we went over the oil and fuel. We've already went over the bulletproofing of the oil portion. So we still got like 4 other components of bulletproofing, which I may dive into those. I will probably dive into those closer to when I plan on trying to get some stuff done with it. Honestly, I probably will try to work on getting the F-150 up before we start bulletproofing, just because, bulletproofing is very costly. The air to oil is what I'm looking at, which is like a $750 component. But I feel like the air to oil is better because if you get the air to oil, you're not really worried about contamination as much, and it's supposed to get the system where it needs to be. So with that being said, hey, if you show your car love, your car will show you love. And we're going to end with that. All right. Love your car, and your car will love you. For car lovers.